Did you guys see? Yes, I did! Whatever it is, I saw it. I've seen everything. My name's David. I've seen everything.
Welcome back to Musician and a Filmmaker. We are joined by probably my oldest friend on this planet Earth, David Raygoza. I met you when I was 7 years old in Little Elm, Texas, at Cesar Chavez Elementary. Yeah. So, and we're here to talk about the Childish Gambino album from 2013, Because of the Internet. As you can see, all of us are very well versed in African-American culture just by looking at our faces. It's obvious. No, but in reality, the reason that we're talking about it is, number one, because it's just like a multimedia project. It's not even just an album. There's like a screenplay and a whole short film. There's multiple short films, and then there's visuals for the screenplay, and then like it's way more than just like, hey, I put out a rap album, here it is. So it's still like probably his most interesting release, at least in terms of like everything around it.
Greg, I only learned yesterday. So for the past 10, 12 years, however long this thing's been out, I was actually under the impression that it was just an album. I didn't know that there was this whole murder mystery detective, rabbit hole that I had to go down to uncover the meaning of certain things. But hey,
that's funny.
It was pretty interesting. Right. It was a really interesting last day of my life.
It was the last. Maybe it's the last night.
It might be the last night of my life.
Anyway,
like
so David introduced me to Donald Glover.
Wore this,
is why he's here.
Yeah. So I wore this on purpose to try and emulate the boy. And I was also going to say, thanks, David, for joining us. I don't know much about you, but I've just learned that you two went to Caesar salad school together, which is great. It's actually one of my favorite salads.
It's a very informational time for you, Jordan.
Very clutch.
Educational. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Clutch salad.
Well, this is the whole point of this show, is to teach people things. So I learned that...
and we make as much as modern teachers do.
We don't make anything.
Exactly.
Childish Gambino's album, Because the Internet, is more than just an album. So... Tell me how you two bonded over this album. You said David introduced you to Childish Gambino. Is that right, Greg?
It's true. Although I can't remember if you told me about Community or if it was just like starting to air and it was like on my family's DVR and then I started watching it that way. But I do remember for sure that you were like, hey, that guy that plays Troy on the show, he's also a rapper. You should check this out. And I'm an impressionable 13-year-old white boy from Texas, so of course, that's the first thing I'm going to do is listen to a rap album. And, I mean, it was peak cringe era Gambino. I hope you're okay with me calling it that, David, because I think even he would probably agree with that denomination. Because
do you think that you first heard Cul-de-sac, or did you get in around Freaks and Geeks and Bonfire, do you think?
I want to say maybe it was even The Stand, the single from the Mystery Team movie. Good morning, I gotta take a stand. Nigga, this who I be. Nigga, this who I am. That might have been the first one. I don't know.
Which has like a very hype music video using just clips from the movie.
Right.
It's funny because I think that both of our entry points into it was through Community, and I also can't remember if we came to Community on our own because we just liked comedy and we liked filmmaking so much that
specifically NBC Thursday night comedies like The Office. I think that was why people watched it, because it was on right after that or Parks and Rec or something.
Yeah, it had a good slot, and NBC was really promoting that night really hard. I think that they were competing with CBS, which had like a really good Tuesday or something for comedy, which was like 2.5 Men and all those. And then Thursday was CBS had their dramas like NCIS. So NBC tried to they were butting heads. They were going for ratings. But Community, I feel like
and they went for those ratings. They said, "Look, everyone, Chevy Chase, America's sweetheart."
You remember Chevy? Yeah.
Who just put out a documentary about how everyone thinks he's a giant prick. So I haven't seen it yet, but I would be intrigued to check it out because
he made a documentary where he is like just showcasing that he is a prick. And,
it's like him recounting his career and being like, talking about all the people that he's, rubbed up against in the worst way. But I'm assuming it's going to be like the Jesse Smollett or like the Vince McMahon one, where you're just sitting there and you're listening to him and you're like, yeah, all right, buddy, whatever you say, like just take it with a grain of salt, but also, you know.
Yeah, he's not bitter. Chevy's not bitter.
Someone should make a Donald Glover documentary.
Yeah, they should.
It'll be me.
Yeah, there's so much to Donald's like artist persona that I really wonder like what our conversations were like back then, because I know for me it became like he had like a Tumblr and that kind of thing at that time too.
He was on Twitter. He had tweets. He was actively tweeting. I don't remember if I had been following him on Twitter and then he announced the I Am Just a Rappers, because I think it was probably, I think I saw Community. I probably heard like the few stuff that was out there. Then the mixtape started dropping after I followed him from knowing him from the show, and then Camp, and then because of the internet. So
yeah, and it's like we were also very online, so I'm sure we found Derek Comedy as well. I don't know, Jordan, if have you watched Derek Comedy, those sketches with Babyface Donald Glover? Okay, those are really funny. Yeah,
I have to put you on, man. There's so much Donald Glover. There's so much Don Glover lore to catch up on. That used to be his Twitter handle, because his dad actually had at Donald Glover first. So for years he was at Don Glover, and then sadly his dad passed away in 2018. And I'm assuming I think it was before he passed away that he gave the username over. But that ties into this album, because there's a lot of stuff about like losing a parent and the disconnection between the parent-child relationship and
the internet.
And the internet, kind of. It's not really like
a little bit.
There's like some substantive commentary like here and there in the lyrics, but it's also like largely just like we live in a society kind of is like the main theme of the album.
We live in a cyclical trap that we can never escape from, and there's no purpose or meaning to any of our lives. Let's get into it. So how do you want to start this, Greg? You want to go track by track? You want to dive into some of this supplemental material first? Let's just go right into the album, because this is my experience.
How about we start with Clapping for the Wrong Reasons, since that was technically released before the album?
That was technically released first, but does anybody know this outside of you guys? Because I feel like
everyone that was paying attention in 2013 knows this, Jordan.
I didn't know this.
You were going to
Community. I was on the internet.
Wait, hang on. You watched television shows before?
I did. I watched all of Community, actually.
This is the guy who,
got
like,
a little weird at the end.
In 2026, if I said, go watch Mr. Robot, he'd be like, eh. So
I don't say that.
I feel that.
Say that all the time.
I feel that.
I mean, it's a great show, but he just doesn't have the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably why this worked so well, because this was, like, at a time period when I was just in middle and then high school. And I had nothing but time to go on the internet and watch everything related to Donald Glover, including his stand-up special.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's like he's had a very unique career. Yeah, he started with Derek Comedy when he was in college, and then he got hired, like, I don't even think he finished college when he got the 30 Rock gig.
Yeah, it might have been his senior year or something, but it was definitely, like, there was no gap when he started 30 Rock and right after school. Yeah.
And then he was on writer on that basically until Community started. But it was like in between seasons 2 and 3 of 30 Rock, they did Mystery Team and then Community. So he's just been a busy motherfucker ever since the age of like 18. Probably way before that too.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So
all right, so we can start with the short then.
Yeah, and Jordan, I'm just curious too. Like, so then, what was the first Childish Gambino track you remember hearing? That
honestly, the very first Childish Gambino track that I ever heard. So, like, I
the My Girls
I watched
remix.
Community, loved it. The first album that I was aware that he had was because of the internet. So the first track that I heard was The Library.
Awesome.
Are you guys aware
and
of
then the second track that I heard was Crawl, and it blew my mind. And I played that track. I don't even know if I got to World Star until like a few months later, because I was just playing Crawl on repeat from the moment I heard it.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's see what else is on this album. I was like, oh, okay, there's actually other good stuff. But yeah, Crawl comes in hard, man, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as well.
That is interesting, because I've always considered it like the weirdest start to any of his albums. Like, It doesn't even feel, it is like a prologue in a way, those two songs. But I guess when you read it through the screenplay, it makes sense. That's interesting that you would bring that up, Jordan, because I never would have guessed that would have been how you were exposed to him. Are you guys aware of the Reddit meme about the party, or not the party, the library?
No.
Someone went on there and was like, guys, I think my favorite Donald Glover Childish Gambino song ever was The Library, because he thought that Crawl was what...
Oh, was part of it?
Yeah, he didn't know they were two different tracks. So everyone was just clowning on him.
Yeah, I just love that. Yeah, he like made it his like ringtone, and it's like, when he comes home, his house goes...
20 seconds. That's great. I mean, there's something out there for everyone.
Like
I'm sure
seconds.
Somebody does love it, and they're just like, it'd be weird for me to say this is my favorite song.
I mean, the transitional tracks are kind of what make this album even more interesting from a structure standpoint. Like, he's never really done anything like that on any of the other albums. So,
well, I think it's because it's so linked with the screenplay. Like, it's the breaking up of the acts and stuff like that. So,
except between like the fourth and fifth act, or third and fourth, I can't remember. But it's like it goes from Earn right into or Pink Toes. There's so many tracks on this album. I'm gonna have to remember what they're all called. The one with Jeannie Yako, I believe, is how you pronounce it. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I guess maybe then what we should say for the listeners out there that aren't aware, as I wasn't, this album came out. There was a 72-page screenplay that accompanied it that tells a story that kind of fits with the album, but is kind of its own thing. And the album is kind of not necessarily a verbatim copy of the narrative of that screenplay, but it's kind of the soundtrack to that fictional movie. So, and correct me, guys, if I'm wrong, because I just found out about all of this within the past 24 hours.
That's a good way to put it, for sure. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you've got the vinyl.
Are you familiar with the lenticular cover? Where it's like a GIF?
That's not working on the camera, by the way.
No, this is just a piece of paper. There's no.
Oh, okay.
but screenplay.
So it comes with the screenplay. So I didn't read the entire screenplay. I skimmed it because I only had 24 hours. However, it seems that the story is about a character named the Boy, who is a rich guy,
rich kid asshole,
who films World Star videos and fights, and he sees a guy die during one of these fights. So then he questions his whole purpose in life, and ends up knocking on doors for women that he's either in love with or has been in love with, and they all kind of turn him down. And then he goes to a wedding where he realizes that love is a better thing to capture on film than hate. And then his father dies, and then he dies, and then it ends.
Well, no, you're skipping over stuff. His dad dies. He goes to Stockholm. He meets a girl that tries to steal his dad's ashes.
Yep.
He meets the What the Fox Say guy. That's in the screenplay.
Yeah, some very bizarre moments.
And then
very bizarre moments.
No, but like the arc isn't complete, because then he goes back to America, and because his dad's dead, he basically like there's no more money.
He becomes a drug dealer,
right? To support the what do you call it? The mortgage on the mansion that he lives in. Which in Clapping for the Wrong Reasons, and I believe the visuals for the album too, it was actually just shot at Chris Bosch's mansion. I guess he just was, busy being an NBA player, so he's like, "Hey, I'll rent you my mansion so you can
That's awesome.
find yourself or whatever."
So this screenplay came out, the album came out, but before this came out, there was a short film called Clapping for the Wrong Reasons that kind of is the prelude to the album, because it's the same place where the album was recorded. It shows the album being recorded.
But I don't know if he's the boy in the short film or if he's Donald Glover. Because they do call him Donald, like during the push-up contest. They're recording the album, but then it's also like there's direct references to the screenplay, like picking up the phone and the Califax collection and stuff like that.
And some of the other characters are the same. Bam is there.
Right. Wow. It's also funny that like you're just looking at the writing staff of the TV show Atlanta during the whole short film. So, except for Malia Obama, she wasn't there yet. She was a little too young to be hanging out at the Chris Bosch Gambino mansion.
Hanging out with Abella Anderson.
The whole project feels really tied to Atlanta, because also there's like this other element that goes with not knowing if it's Donald or the boy, where through his very online presence, because, y'all mentioned his Twitter. Even before his Twitter, when he was just on 30 Rock, he was like big on Tumblr, and he would take these like very voyeuristic photos of things that he would see around. And so he had a very like vulnerable presence on the internet. And then right before, because the internet, on Instagram, he was at like a Marriott or something, and he wrote some notes that were they're very raw. And I take them very like sincerely. Like, I don't read those notes and think it's part of the stunt leading up to the album. I think that Donald was like really trying to process something in the creation of this work. And then in one of those notes too, he says like, I'm scared. Like, it's a whole note. Like, there's 7 different notes, and one of them is just I'm scareds. And one of the I'm scared is I'm scared the show will fail, because he had just left Community and was putting it all on Atlanta. So it's like, you are seeing like the royalty crew, who is also going to be the writer's room for Atlanta. And it's very much this like found family that I think Donald like needed around him. And so I think that, yeah, Copying for the Wrong Reasons, it's like a meld of both of them. Like, it's him getting into character for the boy, but it's also him giving us like a little BTS of the album making, kind of like, the mood of whatever they were setting up for the album, and whatever they were trying to color as like their environment for this new grammar. Because I do think that Atlanta has like a specific grammar to it, and I think they were like shaping it and making the visuals for because the internet.
It's true. Yeah.
Is the character? I've never watched Atlanta. It's another one of the many TV shows I haven't seen. What's the name of the character that Donald Glover plays on Atlanta?
Ernest Marks.
And is that not the name of one of the songs on this album?
A different word, but yeah, phonetically for sure. I don't know if you meant to set that up or not, but yeah.
Connected. There was all sorts of connections, man. I truly went down the wormhole, the rabbit hole wormhole.
Did you go to his Tumblr and see the video of the 2 people fucking on the ATM machine on the streets of Brooklyn? Did you see that one?
I did not.
No?
But I kind of wish I did.
I wonder if that's
all right, then you were clearly not prepared for this episode. If you missed
I guess not.
Did you find any of his archived tweets of him like trying to get like he's basically just like, yo, Jessica Alba, hit me up. I want to fuck you so bad.
I didn't see that either, but I did see some of those letters, I think, that you were talking about, David, and like some of the interviews like leading up where he was saying some pretty like concerning stuff. People are like, what is going on here? Mm-hmm. And then it was like later, he'd be wearing like this kind of style hat or whatever, and people were like, oh, it's all part of the marketing thing. But was it? And I think that there's probably truth to both of those things, because to me the whole project feels like, do we know how old he was when this came out? I'm guessing like mid to late 20s.
I want to say 29.
I don't think so. I think he was more early 30s, but
early 30s. Okay, well,
question.
That still fits the bracket of having existential dread.
He was born in 83, so yes. Yeah, 29.
He just turned 30, yeah.
So yeah, that's that time. I think that's the prime meltdown time for anyone in their life, because that's when you're trying to find your place as a human. Because when you're a teenager, even when you're in your 20s, I think like life. This happens every now and again. Don't let that concern anybody.
Shout out
when
to
you're
the Canon Rebel line of
shout
cameras.
Out Canon Rebel T4i.
It looks great when it's
powering
on.
down.
Yeah.
Powering down every 30 minutes. That period of your life, in your 20s and stuff, I think you're just focusing on like what you can do to find enjoyment in life. But when you're in your like in the cusp of becoming like a full adult. Like, I feel like in your 20s, you can kind of write stuff. You're like, I'm an adult, but I'm kind of a kid, so it doesn't matter. But when you're like fully make that realization that like, no, I'm a living, breathing human adult, and I'm just going to get older from this point onwards, And it's, I think it is a scary moment in a lot of people's lives, and I think that's where I feel like a lot of the momentum of this album, or this art project, if you can call it that, came from for Donald Glover, because it's just like wrestling with what the fuck is the purpose. I mean, the guy's found a lot of success early on in life. That could be even harder to kind of come to terms with what your purpose is in life, especially if you're not seeing the value in becoming a world star.
Yeah.
So,
well, the first lyric on the album is literally, well, aside from the like the yelling part, is like the first thing he says on the album is, who am I? And then there's like that like delayed reverb effect. So I think that's sort of just like the thesis for the album, or at least the beginning of the, emotional arc of the album is sort of stemming from that. And then he really does just sort of like the character of the boy really does just kind of exist in this constant wave of like malaise and indifference because he's never really had to work a day in his life, because everything is just handed to him. Nothing is exciting, nothing is interesting. And so, yeah, like you were saying earlier, like the finding love and even like his weird version of it, which, yeah, covers over to Atlanta, carries over to Atlanta, the sort of idea of like being in your late 20s and having a baby mama and sort of kind of grappling with like, I'm still not really sure if I'm a man and like ready to be a father and a husband and all this stuff, as opposed to like, I'm still trying to figure out who I am. And then like, obviously he had kids as the show Atlanta went on. And I think they only just got married like a year or two ago. So he's come a long way from Stone Mountain, Georgia, which I should point out that for a few years I lived in Georgia because I was going to film school, and you know, just one of the cheapest places to live, as it turns out, is Decatur, Georgia. And Stone Mountain is like maybe a 20-30 minute drive. It shouldn't be that long, but it is because it's, you know, Atlanta. So I've been around these areas, and I can, it helped me visualize in my head when he raps about his childhood on the various albums, because I know how bad it was. It's like the guy who 3005 was originally written for said, started from the bottom, now we here. And that's where, although the boy never really started from the bottom, he always kind of started from, you know, being a Nepo baby.
Yeah,
who I guess his dad,
one of the bigger differences,
we don't really know what his dad does.
Like between the character, the boy, and like actual Donald is obviously like Donald did not grow up with that silver spoon that the boy did. And so the boy is very much like this idealized notion, I think, of what it would be easy to imagine like someone's life is like once you do have everything, once you've like achieved that, but then still feeling hollowed out. And yeah, Jordan, I totally agree with your take on, you know, that kind of return of Saturn 30s phase. And I think that like he was himself seemingly, you know, like instigating it with leaving Community.
Just casually.
We're just going to watch Greg die as we're talking about the meaning of life.
Maybe it's the last podcast. Shit.
Well, if there was a button to do like a virtual Heimlich maneuver on Greg, I'd press it. Control H.
Is there anything more 30-year-old than that?
And he is like, yeah, he's been through it. Like, you know, recently also like the touring has still been taking a toll on him. So like that industriousness, I'm sure like wears on him. Like there's no way like through all those various gigs, like being such a multi-hyphenate, like bro was exhausted, I'm sure. And then like on one of the notes is like, I'm scared
Renaissance man with the Hollywood buzz. Sorry. I didn't mean to I interrupt people on the show. It's what I do.
Oh, go back to choking, Greg.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think, yeah, the Electric Death should have a Heimlich. Because we're all alone all the time.
I'm crying, dog. I'm sorry. I'm thinking
Imagine
about
if they did like include the
notes.
Heimlich, like if we all become so isolated and we just live in our bubbles with our computers, and then like there is a mechanism where if someone presses it on the other side, like some mechanical arm just shoots out of your computer.
It's like
hits you in the solar plexus, and you're like, and you're just fine.
It's like a Tim and Eric's Cinco sketch. The Cinco automatic Heimlich. First step is to remove your teeth. It's always the first step in those commercials, is even if the device has nothing to do with your teeth.
I think that Donald himself was definitely like, at least then in that period, seems to be the kind of person who wanted to like even just instigate that change himself. Like seems to have been feeling pretty restless within Community or whatever like box he was being put in. Like the person who did the art for the Because the Internet like screenplay poster, which has like Rick Ross and all the different like actors like illustrated as their characters, also did a series for just royalty for the mixtape. And in one of them, it's like a character sitting in front of Drake's Take Care album, because Take Care and Gambino's album Camp came out on the same day. So he's like always, even before that, because of him being like actor, rapper, like there were always these like playful like jabs at Drake or like at people online, like trying to compare him to that Drake image. And so he was always like trying to respond to that. So I think that like he has always just been restless within boxes and has always like wanted to, create those phases of change for himself.
Well, thankfully,
admire.
Drake for Spider-Man was never a movement.
Yes.
Do you know what we're talking about, Jordan, when I say that?
I don't, but the idea of it's already making me laugh.
When they were announcing that The Amazing Spider-Man was going to be a movie, people online were like, they should make Donald Glover Spider-Man. They should cast him. That would be amazing. And there was this whole like Twitter campaign to try. It was hashtag Donald for Spider-Man. And everyone... sorry, I'm still recovering. There was like this whole, backlash, of course, because they're going to be like the same idiots that were like, how come they cast the black guy in Star Wars? We're like, no, we can't have a black Spider-Man. And then lo and behold, Miles Morales shows up on comic book pages less than a year later. And guess whose likeness he's based off of?
What's funny, though, is when I said that idea was funny to me, I thought you were talking about Drake was propositioned to be Spider-Man.
Right.
No, that's the joke.
Yeah.
Because their careers are so similar, at least in origin.
Right.
But the thing is that
would be crazy.
Drake is not like Gambino in a lot of ways. Mainly that he didn't go out of his way to make punny, or maybe he did. I'm not super familiar. But the Gambino style is like very heavily reliant on similes. And if I had to describe some of these lyrics in a succinct 4-letter word, it would be whack. W-A-C-K. By the way, when I quote his lyrics that I've written down, I'm going to do it in the Ben Shapiro voice because there's no other way that I can do it without
Can we ask you to at least consider reconsidering?
Well, I'm just saying that any black comic that's done a white guy voice, Ben Shapiro's voice is that voice.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to not be able to get around the corny white guy of it. And it's just the first place my brain goes when I quote black lyrics written by black, because the WAP lyric reading video is probably the greatest thing he's ever done, even if unintentionally. That if people think he's funny, it's because of that. But he's also a piece of shit, and we're not here to focus on that. We're here to focus on a different piece of shit, a fictional character named the Boy.
All right, so should we jump into the album now? You want to do track for track by track, I should say?
Sure, we can do track for track, but I'm sure we can skip past the transitional songs because there's no real lyrics on them.
No, we are going to spend a long time talking about the 20-second interludes.
15 minutes on the library. Here
Dial-up
we go.
is good, actually. Yeah. And we're jumping a little ahead here with dial-up.
Yeah, my bad.
I actually made notes about it because I was like, the subtleties in the distortion and the lo-fi aspect of the instrumental there is so spiritually reminiscent of a dial-up modem.
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't sound like it at all, but it's there's just enough of this sort of glitchiness to it that it's just it doesn't sound as polished as the other stuff, and it feels like a nod at an older version of technology.
I mean, so if we're starting at the very beginning, the library actually sounds more like an actual dial-up tone than dial-up because it has that rough texture of it's pinging at something, and
Sure.
it's that's what dial-up kind of sounded like. It was raspy.
Well,
yeah,
there's
that's true.
There's another sound effect that is consistent throughout the album, which is the click, and a lot of people didn't know what that was. There were people that are like, what's that sound effect? How did they do that? And someone's like, man, you're fucking young. That's a CRT monitor. Come on. I'm like, I get that this is the LCD generation. I guess we're in the
so much.
Currently we're in the OLED generation, but in 2013 it was the LCD sound system hiatus generation. That's the historical context for Because the Internet. James Murphy was 2 years into retirement, fake retirement. But that's a different I keep trying to get Jordan to do an episode on LCD sound systems so that he can roast them, but he doesn't even want to do that. He hates them so much he won't even bother ironically listening to it so that he can roast it.
I actually even have a distaste for you calling that band a band and them because it's just James Murphy, It's a guy.
I mean, Sure.
I would say that and not to digress too much to the LCD sound system, but live, their sound was definitely important with their band. Like their drummer and their keyboardist were the same for the first 2, or maybe even the first 3 albums. I think definitely the first 3 albums. And they shaped the sound together. But there is funny overlap between James and Donald, because I don't know exactly if it's just because they were in the same New York scene, but during the camp tour, he would like play James Murphy, like they had recorded a little sketch together, and James Murphy was like on a webcam talking to Donald, like he couldn't make the show, as if like he was gonna stop on the whole tour for his first like 400 people auditorium engagements or whatever, and then he would do like a track with him. And then Donald ends up on the LCD Sound System documentary. I forget what
yes.
what
Shut up and play the hits.
Yeah, shut up and play the hits.
It's like a 3-second cameo. They just cut to like various people in the audience, and he just goes, does a face to the camera, and that's it. I think Aziz Ansari basically has the same amount of screen time in that.
Right.
But is that in the proper documentary, or is that in the like
it's in the proper
full
doc.
3-hour like DVD concert?
Yeah. It's in both, but it's in the proper doc.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just remember like I was like, this is a well-made documentary, but I can't fucking stand this James Murphy guy. Like, he is so fucking full of himself in that thing. I'm just like, dude, you make electronic dance music. Like, let's not get it twisted. You're not some tortured poet. Like, you're a guy in his 40s who did a thing as a hobby, and then it got too big, and he's like, I don't want to do it anymore. It's like, fuck you. Anyway, since we can't do that episode, I'm doing it now.
Let's get it out in little bits
well,
across
speaking
many
of
episodes.
funny things that would happen at Donald Glover shows, David, can you please screen share us that video of you at one of his? Because there was a phase of Donald Glover's career where he was doing tours that were half stand-up, half rap. So he was like combining the two, and then eventually, obviously, the stand-up got phased out. So, David, can you give a little bit of context for this clip? Because it might not be super apparent in the video itself.
He does crowd work. I mean, so this is the I Am Donald tour, which was to accompany the EP that was right after Cul-de-sac, if I remember correctly.
Right. And it's just called EP, which...
Yeah, it's just called EP, and it's like, so he did like all his like Tumblr hits. Like he did the I'm Just a Rapper stuff, and then he did that after doing a comedy set, and during his comedy set, he was doing crowd work, and my dad was filming off to the side, and he had just taken like just random name from the crowd, and I think I was screaming the loudest because I was probably like the youngest and had the most like energy, because I think that everyone else was already like, late 20s and was maybe a bit shyer, and I was unabashed and really wanted his attention. That's basically all I don't even remember the joke. I haven't watched this video in over 5 years, so
I remember in the description you wrote that he said he was just in the middle of saying something, and it started with, have you guys seen? And then you cut him, and you just shouted, yes!
Right, yeah.
And then maybe like 10 seconds later, your dad started recording this video.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's exactly the kind of kid that I was too. Like where I had, like, I've seen everything, whatever. Like I've seen it, whatever movie you're talking about, I have seen it.
All right, here we go.
Did you guys see? Yes, I did! Whatever it is, I saw it. I've seen everything. My name's David. I've seen everything. Just want to let you guys know. Have you seen my parents having sex? Not so loud now, have you, David? Not so loud now, huh?
That's actually hilarious.
That's been one of my favorite YouTube videos for like the last...
That's so good.
I guess, let's see, 14 years. Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
That was 14 years ago?
You know what's crazy is that an even bigger number, so therefore more impressive and I guess more existentially daunting. I've known David, what was it, 2002? I think?
That makes sense.
I've known you 24 years. Good fucking God.
Yeah.
I hate that. I had to say that
century.
out loud. But I mean, not that I've known you. The fact that it's 24 years.
No, yeah.
It just makes me feel old every time I have to remember that.
We've been through so many phases of nerddom together.
It's true.
We tried to do our own little YouTube series for a sec. We made little short films.
The Young Cinephiles, which could have taken off. That's not bad SEO right there. If we had just stuck with it.
Yeah, but eventually,
Young cinephiles?
Yeah.
yeah,
I
eventually
don't even
we
know if
would have
that's still
aged
out there.
ourselves out though. Like, we would eventually become the unks. So
Right. I think we avoided a good all cow arc there.
I think so too.
Because the internet is the reason that we're all here, literally, because we're on Zoom right now.
We're
And
we're 50 minutes into this cast, and we're going to start talking about track 2, Crawl.
maybe a track
Yeah,
by track wasn't the best idea then.
Who edits? Who edits these?
It's me.
It's Greg.
Of course it's me.
So yeah, Greg, you can take us off course as much as you like because it's your job to fix it. So
It's true. Well, just one last thing I want to say is that because of the internet, you and I have maintained our friendship and kept in touch over the years. Maybe not as much as I would have liked to, but because we met when we were in Little Elm, Texas, and I grew up there from K through 5. And then 6th grade that summer, we moved to this place called Flower Mound. Ugh. But I had to start all over again. I had to meet a whole new friend group, and thankfully I did. And, that was like some of the core people that you go back to when all these years pass. And but the whole time I was keeping in touch with you over Facebook and Twitter and all that. So it's just great that, the internet it's a double-edged sword. There's good and bad to the internet. Part of the good is the keeping of old friendships in a way that you wouldn't normally could have because of space and time. And David, you're in Chicago now?
yeah, I'm in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm still in
We've always
rinky-dink,
been super
Texas.
online, I feel like. I don't know if it's I think we also keep thinking about this album in relation to where we were in our lives, or at least like maybe just because we're talking about Donald, who was an artist we cared about. But like we lived through the changes of the internet too. Like our friendship was via the internet, but also we were like, smartphones came out when we were in middle school, basically. And then so it was like, we've always been as tethered to the internet as any like album that thematically was trying to wrestle with it as it could get, We didn't take it for granted, I don't think.
Yeah.
That's
And
pretty interesting, actually, to look at it from that perspective.
I do find it interesting that the screenplay, to go even further back than the second track on the album, it starts out with the boy. Basically, it's almost just like literally bridging the gap between the end of the album Camp, the song That Power, like the story that I think DC Pearson wrote and then Donald reads.
Yeah.
DC Pearson, by the way, greatest rapper of all time. I just wanted to point that out so I could cut to a clip of,
whoa, what'd you get, amnesia?
Bet you wouldn't sleep on me if I was little Wheezy, huh? Jordan has no idea what I'm talking about, but I'll expose him later.
If I was in a band or something.
And then, it's the boy getting off the bus from camp and then getting in like his father's chauffeured limousine and driving back to the mansion. So it literally just like takes the story of not even something that actually happened to Donald, but I think was just thematically relevant and relatable enough that he included it. And so now it's like, building sort of that backstory, and then it jumps the 15 years to like the modern timeline. I really don't know if I have a desire to do song by song on this one, as more as I just want to like point out sort of the journey and the story of the album, because of the way it's structured, like is very unique. And I'm sure it's not the only album that has like chapter markers in that way. Like some of the more like ambitious like prog rock albums and like just cocaine rock from the 80s. I'm sure that there were plenty of, concept albums like this, but this is like kind of on a whole other level. This ain't like whatever L. Ron Hubbard was going for with the Mission Earth stuff, like deep cut. But like going from Camp and Cul-de-sac and the I Am Just a Rappers and the EP, that was sort of like, it went from like the pure cringe era of like the Poindexters to like, he was starting to get, progress and sort of respect. Like that EP with Freaks and Geeks that's on it, that actually did sort of get people talking about him in the rap, not just the rap game, but also just like in the scene he was trying to break into in New York. And
Totally.
So Camp really felt more like an ambitious, like, I'm making an album and like there's a story going on here, but it's also just mostly just like, bitches want my dick because I'm fucking hot and it's big and I'm gonna bust inside them. And it's like, Okay, we get it. But then he also does like silly like
Which is
comparisons and
not an
like
actual lyric because you can tell because it had no Ben Shapiro voice on it.
I
that's
was gonna
true.
say.
No, this is I'm freestyling as they say. But I think part of Donald being a comedian was that the comedy was always going to find its way into the music in one way or another, and that's not completely absent from because of the internet, but it definitely feels like drawing a line in the sand between like, okay, we're done with the goofy raps, and now it's like I'm an artist. I'm not just a rapper slash comedian. Like anyway, all that to say that there are still plenty of what I would maybe describe as like whack lyric. Maybe not nothing as bad as like some of the stuff he pulls on when he's like rapping over Grizzly Bear on I Am Just a Rapper, like, or even My Girls, which is actually how I discovered Animal Collective. For the record,
That's awesome.
I don't know if I've ever pointed this out to you, David, that
cool.
mixtape, I kept coming back to it. And like, I think at some point I was like maybe a senior in high school going into college. I was like, why don't I just listen, like check out the albums that these songs that he rapped over are from.
Yeah.
And that actually got me into the music I'm into today. So, you know,
That's
the
awesome.
Merriweather Post Pavilion, Neon Indian. I didn't really get into Sleigh Bells, God forbid, but there are a few lyrics that like literally do date this album, but I think he kind of has an excuse with them because it is an album called Because the Internet, and so internet culture is going to find its way into the music. He quotes, "Ain't nobody got time for that." Remember that video?
Of course.
It was contemporary. I think it was even already a dated lyric or a reference when he mentions it on here, but like, I don't know. It's just very, and I think it even more clear is in the following song, World Star, when he has the lyric, she on Hollywood and Vine, thinking that she Hollywood on Vine. Remember Vine? It's just not only having David on this episode is filling me with nostalgia, but just like the references that he's dropping in these songs. I'm just like, Jesus. It's like the Ratatouille gif when he goes from like the cynical art critic to the young peasant boy.
I'm curious what y'all think about this because I actually feel like one of my notes that I wrote down was that it's an album that was trying to wrestle with the zeitgeist of 2013, but to me, it doesn't feel dated. And maybe some of the bars, maybe they feel a little bit corny, and but like that is part to like the whole Childish Gambino motif, like you were mentioning. But to me, none of them feel dated in the sense of I'm like, I don't think they get in the way or shoot the album in the foot in the sense of like that's taking me out. Like I like
Mhm.
Vine, I still feel like people still look up Vines. Like TikTok has its own flavor, but it just doesn't have what Vine had. So sometimes like even people who weren't around when Vine was around, they'll just look up like, Vine Impossible Laugh Challenge. And World Star has also fallen off. Like people don't
Mhm.
really go on World Star anymore because you can find it like, just on people's like IG stories now, basically. So it's like, I don't know. Like, does the album feel dated to y'all? Does it feel too 2013? Is it stuck in 2013?
I don't think so. I think that it's got a mixture because like there is some of those references, like lyrical references that kind of date it more so than I think the musical aspects of it. Because I think it's interesting because there's a couple of tracks where you're like instrumentally this could definitely fit the palette of like artists that are still making like there's the track I forget the name of it that features Thundercat, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
that's the shit that Thundercat would make these days, and it's like that kind of
Yeah.
like pseudo progressive like jazz kind of instrumentation, and that stuff's coming back in a huge way now too. So it's almost ahead of the curve
Well,
in that
this is
sense.
where we have to give a shout out to Ludwig Göransson, Oscar
Yes.
winner,
Yeah.
two-time
Yes.
Oscar winner, Ludwig Göransson,
Hmm.
who composed many scores of movies, but he started out producing for Donald Glover. I think, was Camp the first one, or did he work on Cul-de-sac too?
I'm not completely sure about Cul-de-sac actually, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did because of the pianos on that album.
Right.
But what's interesting too is that dude was like part of like the same Broadway video stable. Like he was also doing the music for I think he did the music for Community and he did the music for like New Girl and stuff like that.
I
And
don't
so
think he
Yeah,
like
was
he
the
did for
primary
Community. Yeah.
composer for Community, but he was definitely like involved for sure.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know
And
if
so
they, I can't remember if they met through that or if they had already known each other.
no, no, they didn't. No, they met through the music and art scene in New York. And it's just funny that they were just like both so in the same circles and so ambitious as artists as well that like they just were both working on the same stuff. But yeah, no, shout out to him for sure because it's clear that he always had a mind for like genre blending Like you said, yeah, Thundercats funk on that. Like that is a precursor to what he'll do eventually on Awaken My Love. But like here you're getting like this first like neo funk snippet, and the album is also so cohesive while going through so many phases, and I think that's Ludwig. I think that's the cinema of Because the Internet. Like it is a
Totally.
complete movie. Even when you're just listening to it, it's sound designed. You know, you get into the car with him on Telegraph Ave, like the whole
Mm.
thing is just like so tightly woven together.
Which,
That's so
speaking of
true.
that song,
Like,
isn't there? Call me crazy if I am, but like, was there not a full version sung by Lloyd of Oakland, the song Oakland? Like, I swear to God, like maybe 10 years ago, they like it like finally popped up on a mixtape or something. But I tried looking it up and I couldn't find it. Like
That's
this
funny.
morning.
It might have been hidden somewhere in the ARG aspect of the album, and so maybe someone had uploaded just like that 1 minute
Maybe I need to
sample
go
or
to
something.
DatPiff and it'll be on
But
there.
yeah, I don't have it, but I do have a lot of Lucy's from his Tumblr era. I have a lot of stuff that he only posted on Tumblr still.
Well, it is funny
interesting.
how like authentic it is when it comes, or Donald Glover is Gambino. Jordan, do you know where Childish Gambino the name comes from?
No, I don't actually.
He typed Donald Glover into the Wu-Tang Clan name generator website, and it said Childish Gambino. So it has nothing to
Oh
do
wow.
with the gangster family. It's
Hmm.
just a
Okay.
random combination of words, and he's like,
name
"Yeah,
generated.
I'm
Yeah.
childish and I'm a gangster." It's like, all right.
Hey, I mean, I've tried some of those like, band name or song name generators, and they're always terrible. So he really lucked out with Childish Gambino because that's actually a really solid one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that listening to that album again, like more recently, I kind of do like, there is a timelessness about it, but there are certain elements that take you back to that time. Because I think like some of the production that's kind of hitting a bit of like an EDM ish, like, you know, sort of a vibe. That stuff is kind of like in that same wheelhouse as stuff that came out after like the Spring Breakers movie came out.
Hmm.
And I felt that a little bit
Hmm.
when I was listening. And I was like, there's definitely like this Frank Ocean inspiration throughout this record as well. That might have been present on other, Childish Gambino albums, but I was like, it definitely feels like there was a big influence by Frank Ocean,
Hmm.
Channel Orange on this.
Oh yeah. Channel Orange also does do that kind of diegetic sound design stuff
Mm,
for sure.
yeah.
What are the odds that they were inspired by Project X? Not the Michael J.
Shit.
Fox movie. The
The Kid
the
Cudi soundtrack,
yeah, Kid Cudi, Steve
goated
Aoki,
trailer mid movie.
which also features for like 10 seconds My
Animal
Girls
Collective.
by Animal Collective.
Yeah.
It always comes back to Animal Collective on this podcast.
That's why we do this show.
So
Everything
we're
is
waiting
Animal
for the
Collective.
collab album, is what I'm saying. Like, they will produce the beats and he will rap over them.
That would make it full circle for you.
Yeah. And then I don't know, jump off a bridge because, like, what else do I have to accomplish at that point?
Nothing.
It's just I've reached peak reality. But anyway, I just wanted to point out it doesn't end with this album. It kind of continues on this like sort of universe story, what have you, with the Kauai EP, which was like bundled together with this mixtape called Stone Mountain STN MTN. And Kauai was available on like Spotify back when I used it, like immediately. And then if you wanted to listen to Stone Mountain, you had to go to like datpiff.com, like the website where you get mixtapes.
Mixtapes.
And because that was just, I think, where they uploaded it. I always appreciated the lyric, "When it all go crazy, when I hear that action, I'ma
I'm
be
a ghost
Scorsese." And then he says, "Hold it horizontal, man. Be a professional." I'm like, yes, thank you.
Yeah. See, that's dating it.
Because when you put a video
nowadays,
on World
nobody,
Star,
they'd be like,
you
no,
would film
don't
it
go
vertical,
horizontal.
and then they would just put like that like ugly like background logo
black.
thing behind it. Although I think they all just had like a giant watermark on them too. So you were kind of just like squinting through it to see the guy punch the guy in the head or whatever. Because they were always just filmed
Ironically,
on like,
Scorsese's next film is going to be filmed vertically because that's the time
and
that we're living in.
it's about street fights
It's
specifically.
Street Fighter, the movie. It's the new
It's a
Street
sequel
Fighter
to Street Scenes. It's a deep cut. So I do remember as a young white youth when The Worst Guys came out. There's some interesting. Well, first of all, the all she needed was some being an incomplete lyric was just kind of like a half joke. Like I think they were listening to the beat when they were working on it, and then it might have been Chance or someone else in the room just like improvised that. Like all she needed was
I
some,
read that
and
was
then
the
they were
first
just
thing
like,
he just came up with.
all she needed was some what? I don't know. Put it down.
So good.
Lay it down, as they
So
say.
good.
And what a great feature to have Chance the Rapper on your song, and that's all he says.
In
Not even got a verse.
2013 of all years, like this was like what 1 or 2 years before he saved SoundCloud from going out of business. Like he was huge at the time. Like acid rap was like more people listened to acid rap than because of the internet. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
At least back then. Coming off that 1.6 Pitchfork review of Camp, I don't think hopes were high for this album.
That's crazy. I did not remember that was the actual score. That sounds.
And that's
so
the album where he
disrespectful.
said Pitchfork only like rappers who are crazy or hood, man. Like,
Yeah.
do you think that was the reason they gave him that rating? Because they were like, "Fuck you."
That's just so disrespectful. I mean, I've never read Pitchfork and I forget, but 1.6, like that's something you give to something that's like no effort, right? Like if you're
Right.
giving something like a 2 or less, you're like, this is don't put it in your ears. Camp has hits that are still trending on TikTok, like Heartbeat, and I don't remember what else, like, but
Bonfire.
yeah, there are songs from that era that are getting more play than his last 2 albums on TikTok for
I
whatever
can
that's
see
worth,
like
you know?
actor TikTok just like lip syncing to the monologue from the end of That Power. Like
I will do it.
POV, you are on the bus headed home from camp, and you see
Yeah.
the girl. And you
No,
want to
yeah.
make one last attempt to try to get it to know her.
But the tears are real. I'm reading something fictional, but I'm crying for real.
Yeah. The worst, guys, I just wanted to point out that I made a concerted effort to learn the fast rap part, because that was how you impressed the other white youths in your circle, was if you knew if you could do the fast rap. I'm something
And
so
now,
immaculate
Greg,
instead of asking
yeah,
what's happening,
there it
rather
is.
blasting Jackson 5 in the back of an accurate acting blacker than the Bernie Mac, true Charlie Murphy's an Akon. At the time, I didn't know what a Bernie Mac or a Charlie Murphy was.
No.
So I've since been educated. I just saw Bad
Those are
Santa.
both items at
a week ago.
McDonald's, actually. I think.
I need to go back and watch the Bernie Mac show because he's really fucking funny. Like
Truly.
I've been missing out.
It's a good sitcom. Yeah.
Kings
Yeah.
of comedy, man.
R.I.P.
Yeah, rip.
But if I'm watching Kings of Comedy, it's for the god Steve Harvey. It's not for any of those peons that are on the
It's an ensemble.
dais.
It's an ensemble. But I was going to say, speaking of which, though, like, we were going to talk about the music video at all there? I mean, because, like, that has a big part of the screenplay that I cannot believe I forgot to mention. Roscoe's wetsuit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. We still don't know what
You know?
it means.
Well, everyone's in wetsuits in that music video.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
It's
Yeah.
There
gotta
is that
be
section in the screenplay
some
where
connection there.
there's like a whole thing where they're trying to go surfing.
They're surfing, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
No,
they
I
end
do
up
think
just
that
like
there was-
buying new surfboards instead of trying to drive them out there or something.
And then there was, even while Atlanta was airing, there were still the holdovers who, for some reason, they thought Roscoe was gonna show up in Atlanta. Like every
Right.
episode, they were just like, like scanning the frames, and they were like, "It's a Zapruder film. We're finally gonna know who Roscoe is and why he bought the wetsuit." And then
That's so funny.
never happened.
But I think its place in the screenplay is more just like, I don't even know who I could compare it to, like director-wise, like maybe David Lynch, if I'm reaching. But like, it's just like one of those pervasive things that keeps popping up in your life that you don't understand the meaning of.
Yeah.
Maybe it
I
means
don't-
something,
yeah.
maybe it means nothing, but you're always just kind of like, maybe it's
Well, isn't that kind of-
let me get analytical here real quick.
I was gonna
Maybe
say, I think
it's a
you're going
metaphor
where
for
I-
his depression
Yeah.
and how the depression follows him around everywhere he goes.
That's not what I was going to say.
No.
That's a good way of thinking about it. I was about to say that maybe it's like that whole quest for purpose in existence is that maybe there isn't any, and maybe the whole thing is just you just have to accept the mystery sometimes.
Well, do you think it could also be some sort of like contradiction, like the idea of a black guy named Roscoe being well off enough in life that he has a wetsuit and uses it regularly? Like, I don't know.
This isn't about
There's something going on there. It could be like David Lynch, where even Donald Glover's like, I don't fucking know. I just had the idea. I wrote it down. I bought
could be.
the billboard. Although he
Yeah.
didn't actually buy a billboard. That was just in a little like short script that he wrote as like just another little like. It was like he wrote this like scene between these two like teenagers, like late teens, early 20s guys, like walking down the street discussing the themes of like the album and like what the cryptic, like they're self-aware of the fact that they're talking about Childish Gambino and his latest releases and all this stuff. There were a couple of guys that actually did go through the effort of filming that script and like shooting it in a short film, and like they shot it on the street with a billboard so they could composite Roscoe's wetsuit on it. And I'm like, see, that's cool.
I was wondering if anyone like tried to do that, or if there was even an attempt on like Donald Glover's part to try and actualize this screenplay.
I think he shot enough. Clapping for the Wrong Reasons was shot on 16 millimeter. Forgot to point out.
Oh, I didn't
That's
know
part
that.
of why it looks so gorgeous. Like
That's
especially
interesting.
the like big wide shots of like the infinity pool and the mountains and all that. Like
That's cool. I didn't know that.
shout out to Chris Bosch's realtor, because it's a primo spot.
Honestly,
very
beautiful.
cinematic.
While we're talking about visuals and stuff like that, I mean, there's a few music videos that are tied to this whole project, and I think that they also hold little tidbits of maybe clues or Easter eggs that connect all the pieces together. Do you guys think that there was any like moments in the music videos where you're like, oh fuck? And also talking about that Lloyd song, and this may or may not be your Mandela effect memory, Greg, but like they also took down, I think, the music video for that, and it's like, because I could only find it on YouTube, like some guy just uploaded it.
The one with
And like
where they're in Hawaii with Jeannie Aiko and the squid alien at the end. Really? Because I remember when that dropped,
and someone
it was like
the comments were like, "What the fuck? Like, why isn't this on the official channel?"
Well, first of all, it dropped
like,
10 months after the album did. So by that point, we were like, oh, yeah, that song.
Yeah.
But it was still really cool to see, because that was around the time he started working with, oh, God, what's the guy's name? He directed a bunch of episodes of Barry and a lot of Atlanta.
Well, I was going to say,
What's his
Hero
fucking
did
name?
direct, Hero Murai
guy.
did direct Clapping for the Wrong Reasons.
Right.
Yes.
And I think he might have done the visuals for BTI. I wouldn't be surprised. They have the look that Atlanta has as well. That goes back to me saying, like, I think they were building out the grammar for Atlanta through this project, like, very consciously. They were like, this is going to have that same surreal feel, like what you called, like, kind of Lynchian, you know?
Well, I guess it's not unfair to compare Donald Glover to David Lynch, because he literally pitched Atlanta as Twin Peaks, but for rappers.
Yeah.
That was his elevator pitch. So.
It's very conscious, yeah.
But it also did seem like, from the time that they announced it to the actual like first episode airing, that conceptually it went through a lot of changes before reaching its final form. Because like some of the ways that it was being like talked about didn't have any relation. I think that's why the show was so like impressive out of the gate, because it was just like what we weren't expecting, but it did have some sort of those similar threads. Now, Jordan, back to your
videos.
To address your question, I think that there is like half and half. I think there's like half of the music videos have some sort of like, obviously the Telegraph Avenue doesn't really have anything to do with like the video. It doesn't have anything to do with the screenplay or even the look of the boy. Or it feels very much more like a companion piece to the Kawaii EP than it does because of the internet. So it's a weird in between. But The Worst Guys is probably the most direct reference. The 3005 video, which I always forget about because it's not really a video. Like it is, but it's mostly just him on a Ferris wheel. Like there's not a whole lot going on in it.
Even though it's such a simple concept, I found that like that to me is almost the most connected to the album, because the thing that I got very much from this album, like the most sort of basic, like, oh, I'm looking deep into this, what does it mean, is the fact that the library, sound bite or whatever that first track is, repeats at the end of the thing, and it's that cyclical pattern of the album basically starting again. And on a deeper scale, life, it's we live, we die, we don't know what comes next, but other people just live again. And it's all so cyclical and, revolving door. So what is the best visual kind of metaphor for that? Is a fucking Ferris wheel. So it's like this thing that just keeps
panning away
around
and coming back, but then like
and
the teddy bear next to him is
deteriorating throughout the whole thing.
Well, I think
to the point that he even just vanishes and the world around is burning. And I'm like, I think this is a great like kind of visualization of kind of that existential dread that the album is tackling with.
Well, I think it also kind of ties into the like, if you do, Jordan, honestly, you should read the full screenplay, because it is fascinating to see, like, he wrote a fucking movie. It wasn't just I wrote an album. He wrote a full movie. They only
honestly,
shot like 15 minutes of it,
I was
but
I was like, I wish I wasn't on a time crunch, because this is actually really interesting.
Well,
in fact,
I'll say if you try
to
to do the thing where if you listen as it says play this track, the track will end way before you finish reading the scene. So just be aware that it's not the best.
Yeah.
Like, I do miss the
I'm
website though. It was so cool that
I'm
it
going to
was
say
like
something
integrated.
Website
I'm going
was
to say
awesome.
something that's going to be very controversial, especially amongst y'all that are big
Wait,
fans of
well,
this
real quick,
album.
can I continue your thought from the 3005 video?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
The reason why I bring up the screenplay is because like as the boy's dad dies, the mansion is already kind of like messy as the movie starts, but then like towards the end, it's just like a complete shithole. Like there's like sticky, like there's flies. It's just like decay and rot is like a pervasive theme in the screenplay. Like even at the beginning, when he like as a boy he kicks his shoe into the wall and it leaves that brown spot. 15 years later, the brown spot is still there, and it's just like there's even more shit in his room now, like shoes and clothes, and so it is just sort of like I don't really know exactly how. I guess it is just like tied into how his character is just sort of indifferent to his surroundings until shit gets real and he has to try and hustle, if you will. But do we even find out what actual drugs that he's selling, David? Do you remember?
He's
It's just
moving
drugs.
kilos in the
Kilos.
thing. So
Kilos of
I think that
something.
implies I think that implies cocaine.
Well, you've never bought a kilo of heroin before?
I have not.
Give it a
Anyway, here's
shot.
my controversial opinion: is that, and I am going to go back and read the screenplay because skimming it due to time constraints, I was actually really, really drawn in by it, and also going through all the supplemental stuff, the short films, the music videos, and building this kind of like map of all these things that at the center of it is this album. I was kind of like, the album might be the least interesting part of this whole project.
Mm.
I feel like it's not to say that it's a bad album. It's a good.
Right.
It's a mighty fine
It's
album.
not like
but
The Wall, where The Wall is
there's
kind of a
just so
similar
much-
multimedia project, but like
yeah,
if you're
but
not
there's just
watching
so
the
much
movie, if you're
depth
just
with all
listening
the other
to the album,
stuff.
yeah,
where it's just like, and I think also it could be a unique thing, not unique, but for me specifically because I have been familiar with this album for a number of years and was not familiar with the other stuff around it. So it's like I think maybe that's just like my perspective because the album's kind of like old hat for me now, and this other stuff I'm like, oh well, this is actually really fucking cool to dig through. But I mean, I guess they all do live in the same universe, and I don't think they are obviously connected for a reason. So you probably can't have one without the other. But yeah, that thought did occur to me while I was going through it. I was just like, damn, like all this other stuff is like, this is like real, fucking Sherlock Holmes, get out the magnifying glass and see what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And maybe there's nothing there too, which is like, I think maybe a little bit of a internet trolley joke in itself,
Well-
which also adds to the metaphor.
trolling these inwards, Rick rolling these inwards. They act like they don't know any better. You should not be Rick rolling people in the year 2026. Okay, it's childish, just like this rapper.
It was a rewarding experience, that
Getting
Sherlock Holmes
rickrolled?
ARG-ness.
Oh.
Because I was in New York. That was my first semester at NYU when the rollout was happening. And I was lucky enough that most of the rollout events were in New York and not LA or some other city. So I was able to go to like three of the secret shows, and I
For the
got to go
record, you
into
weren't
the
lucky enough. You're a lucky bastard, is what you are. That's coming from me specifically.
But it was like you had to be involved, and like it was like part of that community aspect of like searching for the clues in the tweets, searching for like the clues like in the website, and then like you would find out like what building it would be in Soho or whatever, and then you would just line up. And then there was the boys' room, which was set up at Rough Trade in Brooklyn, where you could walk through a recreation of his room.
Oh yeah, I completely
Wow.
forgot about that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gorgeous. It was like it
What
was
was the
neat.
shoe thing?
The shoe.
Do you remember there was like some sort of like shoe pop up where there was like an
Ooh.
event where like you showed up, but it was just like him sitting in a field surrounded by people, and then like
Oh
if you
yeah.
stuck around long enough, you could get like an exclusive pair of like were they Yeezys? I don't even
I
remember
don't
what that
remember the
was.
shoe aspect of it, but I
That's something
do.
where I'd have to go on the subreddit because I remember when that happened and being
Yeah.
like, "You fucking dorks! Like,
Yeah, I
go
don't
to
remember the
McDonald's
shoe
and ask for
aspect.
Szechuan sauce. Why don't you?"
I think that like a lot of people were showing up to these things not even knowing what they would get, like if we were actually going to like, because a lot of them were promoted as listening parties basically, and we didn't even
Right.
know if he would be there or not, if there was going to be like a visual aspect to it. And then in one of the listening parties, he actually did like a minimalist performance of a few of the songs with just like a three-person band, and that was really neat because that was just like in a very small space. But that like that aspect, Jordan, that you're talking about, like definitely I think for people who were like already excited about the album, the album was so good, none of us were disappointed in it, but like I'm sure that anyone who lived through that rollout, like they just what we love is the fact that it was so multi-layered. Like it was like
Hmm.
you could become obsessed with it if you wanted to, and it wasn't just replaying a track, it was like literally message boards, like he was really wanting to push that angle of like nerd and fandom online.
Well, yeah,
It's
part of
super
why
cool.
this album
Super cool.
holds up is because it does feel like it's written by someone who was authentically online during the
Yeah.
time period. Like
Hmm.
he's making references to Weave. If you ask someone on the street, not even on the street, if you ask someone on like Twitter who the fuck Weave is, they wouldn't know unless they
Hmm.
were like, Kiwi Farms, something awful like knowledgeable, like that zone of the internet. So, it's just it doesn't feel like it's forced at all when it's tying into stuff like that. Face down in the brown grass, shame shame on my brown ass just always stood out to me because it's just a very funny way to start a song. Like
And it's
especially
like
if one
a
is like
that's like
dark
a that's the
as Shadows is
romantic.
supposed to be.
Yeah, that's the Thundercat track, and then you open it with that corny lyric. Like it's awesome. Like
Yeah.
it's like you have this intricate 12-string bass, and then you open with that. It's just like lovely.
I think Jordan, kind of what you'll get out of the screenplay is that it's very descriptive in the scene direction. Like it almost kind of feels novelistic in a way because
Well, I know that
it's like half
it
inner
also,
monologue, half like
yeah, it changes halfway through, right? Like it becomes very like I am doing this, and instead like the narration voice becomes like first person.
right, or it
And I
even
was
feels
like,
kind of like the Fight Club book, like the way that that's written from.
Chuck Palahniuk, yeah.
Yeah,
The
that like half like six. At some point, it stops going from like proper screenplay like capitalization to just like lowercase like
I
almost
did
like
notice
text
that.
messaging, like which I guess ties into
And I
the
think
whole thing. But
I think it's so great because it's also like it blurs the line of who the boy, who Childish Gambino, who Donald Glover is, and I think that the album is also kind of constantly doing that as well. Like, isn't it that the last track on the album actually says featuring Donald Glover?
yes, although I think that's up for contention because I don't know if that was official. I think that might have came from the like, oh, the CD leaked, I'm gonna rip it and put it online era. David, I'm actually curious if you remember when the album leaked. It was like 2 or 3 days before it was supposed to come out. It actually leaked on my birthday in 2013, and I was at
Nice.
home with like a horrible flu. So I actually didn't like the album the first time I heard it.
Oh no.
But that was just because I was in the wrong headspace for it, and then I came back, of course, and I was
I
like, "This is
remember that it
fantastic." But
happened, but I didn't remember that it was just 3 days before it came out. And I
yeah,
don't even remember how much time I gave that version a listen because I feel like I would have been a stickler and wanted to wait but I do remember that that happened.
so do you remember the leak? And then like I don't know. We were saying we don't know if it's official if the last track featuring Donald Glover was like if he put that there or if someone else put that there. Do you know what I'm talking
I don't
about?
remember that,
Life
no.
the Biggest Troll, like
Oh,
in parentheses, Andrew Arnheimer, and then it was like featuring Donald Glover.
yeah.
But I think a leaker added that because I think when I downloaded the leak, it also cut off early at the
Mhm.
end of that song when he's like it plays through most of the song and then it gets to
Never forget this feeling. Never gonna reach a million. Eventually, all my followers realize.
Yeah,
and
I
then it was just
remember that.
over. And
Yeah, I
then I remember
remember
like months later, my friend had never actually downloaded the proper version. And so I was like, I was quoting something like the "you have to help me" part. And he's like, "What's that
that.
from?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's from because of the internet." He's like, "No, I don't remember that." And he still had the version that cut off. I'm like, "There's another like minute and a half in that song, buddy."
Yeah, that's
So,
true. I had forgotten about that. That is such an interesting place to cut it. Like even if it was just like the person who leaked it who did it, like
but do
it
you
felt really
think
playful.
was it an intentional cutoff, or do you think it was just like I'm in a rush to be the first one to leak this album, and I left out the last minute and a half of this 58-minute album.
But that
Who
just sounds
cares?
so strange. Like
Yeah,
why? Like what you're already leaking it. It's a file. Like there's no
I have
reason.
no
You know what I
idea.
mean? You're not like
Maybe that was
in.
like
That's Mr.
maybe.
Robot. That's not
And
real life.
here's my here's my Sherlock Holmes theory. Like cue the visual montage. Maybe Donald Glover leaked the album.
Could be.
Because I remember there being a whole thing about him not wanting that. This was the last album he did. 2 albums with Glassnote, and then he switched to a much bigger label after this. But I remember him being upset that I can't remember if he wanted to release it in December, but they didn't want him to because they wanted it to be on like those end of year top 10, greatest album of the year lists.
Yeah,
and December
supposedly
is usually
they
like the
just
cutoff
said
point
like
for that.
it's not a holiday record, so you can't put it out then.
Right,
And he
but
was
it's like
yeah.
it has year-round relevance. Like it has nothing to do with the fact that it was released on December 6th, 2013.
Right.
It's just that's when it was done and ready to be shipped out in
I think
CD
it's very
form.
likely that he could have leaked it or like did leak it himself because like now that you're talking about it, I'm like there was no quality loss. Like it sounded good.
Yeah.
So I don't see why not,
It's probably one of the highest quality leaks I've ever downloaded, for what it's worth.
Also, I went and got this, but this is from one of the like secret shows. This is one of my prized possessions, but this is like
Amazing.
the non-arted version of the album with his signature on it.
Put it all the way in front of your face. Stupid focus. God damn you, Apple.
It can't be
We just want to see the autograph not blurry.
Oh.
It's on face mode, I guess.
Do I go like this? Would that do it?
Yeah, there's a little clearer.
Yeah. Childish. There you go. That's fucking awesome, dude. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, because that was before the Record Store Day.
That's so sick. That's
LP
so
release where the screenplay and all that came with it. And that also was a thing where like it didn't just end in December 2013. Like if you wanted the vinyl, it was like the album had already been out like maybe 4 or 5 months before that Record Store Day. Yeah. And I pointed it out on the last episode. The two albums I bought on LP that day was Because the Internet and Oracular Spectacular, which is the one we just did. So it all ties together. Yeah, man. Because the Internet, mistakes are forever. Well, except if it's me editing the video, in which case they are not. I have the... I'm the arbiter of mistakes.
You have the power to remove your own
I'm not
mistakes,
going back to the
not
Keemstar days. Can I point out some of the strange phrasing that he has on this album? In no, sorry, this is still in The Worst Guys. He says, ice cream paint job in the garage. I know that's a reference to another song. But then the following line is, I had a menage. I murdered the Vaj. V-A-G.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone pronounce it that way. It's always Vag. Like, I think he invented that, actually.
It sounds a little more like, exquisite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think
maybe the French say it like that, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
The Swedish, that's where he picked it up, was in Stockholm. One of those zealots.
Yeah, when he's getting the ashes.
I think Telegraph Avenue is probably one of the few songs that, like, thematically can be applied to both the character of the boy and Donald, because he says, and you want to be a mom, and I wasn't mad at it. I was thinking about me. I'd be really bad at it because I'm thinking about me. And then later he says, I got furniture to move, and we'll both be 30 soon in Oakland. The only one I know is you, so the fuck I'm supposed to do in Oakland? Like, you can see him sort of, like, grappling with the idea of, like, no, I'm trying to be this big, like, star. I can't be locked down to domestic life. And then, obviously, things change, and, he definitely slowed down in terms of, well, I can't even say that, because he was always, like, working on, like, 2 or 3 other projects in the background, whether or not they came to fruition, like the Deadpool thing. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I think, I can't remember if that overlapped with the Atlanta production schedule, but there was a whole thing where they took like 4 years off because of the pandemic and just general Donald Glover's being in Spider-Man. Like 2017 was a big year for him. The Martian, of course. So I can definitely see him like certainly reaching some sort of breaking point, maybe when his first child was born, that he was like, okay, I think it's time to like pick a lane and stick in it because I have other stuff to attend to that isn't show business related. So
yeah,
it definitely like feels like that is sort of the main through line of this album, like disappearing in the character of the boy, because it allows him to sort of grapple with these big life changes that he is either going to go through or is going through. And I don't know if it's fair to say, or my space to speculate, but I would assume that a lot of the like parental stuff on this album, and again, this could not be reality, but I'm guessing that Donald Glover Sr. had probably got cancer or some other sort of illness, maybe Parkinson's, I don't know, around this time period, that probably had Donald grappling with a lot of these realities. Like, what if my dad's not around anymore? I can't go to him for advice. And, like, the sort of circle of life, like we were talking about earlier, like, losing a father and then becoming a father, and like things that he could probably sense were getting close because, he was 29. So that's about the age where it's time to stop being a kid and, grow the fuck up. And of course, this is me saying this, but that's just what I observe. And this probably is the only rap album that references C-3PO, I think.
And very specifically too.
Yeah,
with
multiple times in the same song in two different contexts. Yeah, but also she's dressed up in gold.
I had to think about that.
She on my back about it. C-3PO, C-3PO, C-3PO.
I actually had to think about that line when I heard it, because I was like, when is C-3PO on? My go-to of someone being on someone's back in Star Wars is Yoda being on like Luke's back.
I mean, it's the same movie.
So I actually had to think about it.
They intercut between the two. Still spitting that cash flow, DJ Khaled. I got a penthouse on both coasts. pH balance. Get it?
Penthouse balance?
Yeah. Some of this stuff that we were like, when I was, 17 when this came out, 16, 17, I was like, that's fucking clever as shit. And now I'm just like, okay, whatever, dude. Like, maybe that's just an aging thing. I don't want to disparage Gambino, but he also follows it up with hip deep in that Pepto. I got 5 on her like Ben Folds. Not I got 5 on it.
5.
Like, no, the specifically the Ben Folds 5. I got more tail than that Petco. You faker than some sweet and low. And then there's also a lyric on that song where he says, no hands like soccer teams, and y'all fuck boys like Socrates. I mean, just casually throwing that out there, like a little bit of his history for you guys, if you didn't know. Ain't nobody sicker in my Fisker, vroom vroom ho. And then he interrupts the song, which is one of my favorite moments on the album. He just stops the beat dead in its tracks to be like,
Fiskers don't make noise when they start up, just so you know.
And it's true. I did, within like a year or two of that album coming out, I was in like a mall parking lot, and I was like, is that a Fisker? And then a guy like got in it, and it started up. I was like, wow, it really doesn't make noise.
It's quiet as hell.
I'm glad I bumped this song in my Scion XB.
Well, we haven't talked about the music video for Sweatpants.
That's true. Okay, I guess we did interrupt with 5 other topics. When I was saying that, I think they like half and half apply. Like Sweatpants, I don't think is like explicitly a scene from the screenplay,
but it
has a similar sort of like freak out moment at the end.
And I think if you break down like
the music video itself,
Donald Glover, like every character being replaced by some different version of him, I think that could tie in if you think of it in that way, where it's like we all kind of share a similar experience, or maybe like trying to interact with the world when maybe all you know is yourself can manifest itself in that way or something like that. And it's also got the cyclical thing of him constantly coming back into the diner. Yeah. So that goes with like the clapping for the wrong reasons and the 3005 Ferris wheel video.
Yeah.
And The Library, everyone's favorite track. It's a banger.
I do think that like basically all of them except for maybe Telegraph Ave, I feel like all of them do inhabit the psychological space of the album, even if they're not direct scenes from it. And it's probably like to an advantage that the screenplay, the album, and the videos are all their own like experience. They don't need each other. Like you don't have to have known. You can watch the videos and not need the context of a screenplay, you know? I think that's really neat. Like, I mean, I always felt that both 3005 and Sweatpants were really good, like emo videos. Like they capture something that's really neat. Like we've talked a little bit about how he really wanted to break into the like music scene as an artist. And I think that this was like also prime, like what we were talking about with its relationship to 2013, possibly EDM sounds or the instrumentation that Ludwig got on there. It's also like part and parcel to like that Kid Cudi emo scene, which was, like The Weeknd was also posting on Tumblr when his first mixtapes came out. It was interesting how much like R&B and alternative hip hop was leaning into what like has now evolved into being rager. Like we went from emo hip hop to now it's become punk hip hop. Like now a lot of hip hop has to do with like moshing and actual raging. So it was like another thing that it shares with its zeitgeist is that like the videos I think psychologically are part of that like sad boy. Like hip hop is also
Sure.
emo.
Yeah.
Like not just rock isn't the only emo genre. And also, Black Rock, like a fucking Lost episode. Like he always wanted to make rock music for black kids. And like you get that when you watch the videos as well, I feel like.
Well, yeah, that's what like
Totally.
I am just a rapper, right? Like that was sort of his reason for like I'm gonna take these white indie
Ooh.
bands and rap over them because I want. He's like I want to sort of kind of give to younger black kids that might be into non-traditionally black media or
Mhm.
whatever, sort of like make them feel seen in a way that maybe they wouldn't normally. And so that's kind of why. And this might be controversial. I mean, he's no JPEG Mafia, but he definitely has a lot of white fans. And I think he probably got shit for that from other
Oh,
rappers.
no doubt. No,
Yeah.
it's like it's interlaced with his legacy, and now we are just like affirming it. But in
Isn't
the
there even a
movie,
lyric on like Backpackers about that
I'm
from
sure.
Camp?
Yeah, I'm sure. But what I was thinking of was that the movie Dope, which I think came out in 2016, maybe
15. Yeah.
2015. The movie Dope, like on screen, has a list of like things that white kids love to appropriate from black culture, and one of them is like Donald Glover is like literally on the list. And
Yeah.
so it's just like it's been immortalized. Like there's always been this tension between what Open Mike Eagle coined as art rap and like mainstream pop rap. And it's like it's only become sillier the more that everyone has gotten into internet music. Like the more that people got into using Bandcamp and SoundCloud, those started to mesh. But before that, like you guys mentioned, like Dat Piff, like it was really hard to make your indie sad boy shit pop off on Dat Piff because that was where you went for like American drill or trap and stuff. And so it was like there's always been that tension, and it's not, I don't think it's a hot take. I think unfortunately, still when you go to like, yeah, you said JPEGy, but it's like unfortunately a lot of rap shows are still predominantly white, especially because like the pricing is just like exorbitant, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember back when we were like when they were like putting out like what rappers make per show, and they were like Childish Gambino $80,000, and we were just like, whoa. But like obviously he probably makes way more than that now. Like at least Donald Glover isn't out here tweeting about how white people are whack for listening to Panda Bear. Like I don't know if you saw that recently,
Yeah.
David, but it was very
Yeah.
funny. Because it's
Yeah.
just like,
What?
dude, what are you doing? Do you remember Jordan? He was like white. Oh God, hang on. I got
Wait, who said that?
JPEG Mafia.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right.
Performative whites more concerned with Luigi's sex tape and trying to make Panda Bear a thing than anything real. Someone just replied and said, "Shut the fuck up." So
That's so funny.
they put it into words that I in a way I couldn't.
Honestly,
Now,
I don't think Peggy's wrong. I think that maybe he like tweets a little bit too much, but I enjoy it. Like I think that I enjoy his candor. And unfortunately, I don't think he's wrong.
I
But
mean,
it's important to care about Luigi. I'm sorry, JPEG. Like
do you think he would care more if it was like, you know, a black guy killed the United Healthcare CEO?
oh, for sure. I mean, he would probably then put that on like a poster. Yeah, for sure. He would care
Yeah,
more.
yeah, on a
Yeah.
T-shirt.
Yeah.
He would monetize it.
Speaking of people, I
Always
made
gotta wash
a
them at their
connection.
ends.
You gotta meatballs. So I came to a conclusion while I was listening to the track "No Exit,"
Mm.
which is a banger.
Don't go, gotta know.
That
Please don't run away.
it sounds an awful lot like a couple of other songs that I've heard in the past by another rapper from Canada. Represent Cadence
Tom
Weapon.
McDonald. Oh, sorry.
You guys probably don't even Tom McDonald. Please don't bring up that name ever.
It's the only Canadian rapper I know. I'm sorry.
Have you
And
heard of
Macklemore.
Cadence Weapon? Has anyone heard of Cadence Weapon?
No, that's a great name though.
It's a great weapon. It's a great weapon, great name, great cadence. So check out Cadence Weapon. Check out the song, and Greg, this will be on you for editing this portion into the final.
This will be the clip that
video
gets
here.
the video blocked worldwide, like our
It will be,
Christmas
for
on
sure,
Mars
100%.
episode.
So check out the track "Oliver's Square" by Cadence Weapon. It came out in, I want to say, 2006, so well before, because the internet. The instrumental shockingly similar.
3 a.m. stare at the ceiling, murder the feeling, spider crawl in the corner, brown recluse.
And then if you look at another track that's on that same Cadence Weapon
Which
record,
part of the instrumental?
It's the bass. And if you listen to a track called Lisa's Spider that's on that same record a couple tracks further down, lyrically, very similar to the spidery stuff in that track. And I was like,
That's cool.
Do you think he had like
I wonder if maybe it's possible that somewhere along the line they just say, hey, there's Edmonton fucking rapper Cadence Weapon there.
I know he toured Canada for sure, like before this album.
It could be coincidence, but it could be because of the internet.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
Do you think he had like a eureka moment when he was like brown recluse? Holy shit, that's just like me. That's why he repeats it like in different contexts in that song.
When did the movie Enemy come out? Was that around the same time?
2013.
There you go.
Yep.
It's all
when
connected.
did Enema of the State come out, Jordan?
1997?
9.
Fuck.
What, you don't have every episode title of our podcast memorized?
No.
How do you guys feel about the lyric, "Girl, why is you lying? Girl, why you Mufasa"?
I love it. I love every corny lyric you've ever. Every
the thing
corny
with
lyric
3005 is that one blew up. That was like a big hit. Like that probably put him on the map more than like Sober or This Is America was like, or Redbone even. That 3005 was like what broke him into the mainstream. It went from like being a guy you knew from that TV show and just like his internet shenanigans to serious songwriter. And maybe it's because he intentionally wrote it for a more mainstream artist like Drake and then just ended up recording it himself, that it has that sort of appeal. But no matter how much people fuck with the song, everyone that I've shown it to is just like, really? When they hear that line, I'm like, why you Mufasa? Which doesn't even really make any sense because Mufasa always told the truth. Like, Scar would be the more, but that doesn't rhyme with, Mikasa Sukasa gotta strip it like Gaza.
Yeah.
That's what keeps this album relevant in 2026.
Isn't there another Lion King reference in there? Isn't one of the girls named like Nyla?
Yeah, but in The Lion King, it's Nala.
Fuck.
You racist. No.
I think all lions have the same name.
Well, it's funny that you don't like that bar, Greg, because like when you watch live videos...
For the record, I think it's fine. I just think, yes, it is silly compared to like the rest of the song, at least.
Sure. He's a very silly guy. He's a goofy guy.
He's childish.
But like when you watch, even from that era of touring, if you watch live videos, that's like one of the ones that he likes to like put the mic out to the crowd because everyone just like gets into, why you Mufasa? Like everyone just yells it together. Like it just gets people going for some reason.
I don't know why, but for some reason I picture like, remember that picture that was going around of Chadwick Boseman doing the Wakanda Forever thing, but he has like the most sad look on his face. Now in context, that's probably because he was dying of cancer. But it was funny at the time that people were like, oh my God, it's eating him alive. He's too famous. He can't handle it. And people just being like, shut the fuck up. Everyone saw Black Panther. Like, of course he's going to embrace it.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you guys, do you remember what GPOY stood for? Because I actually had to Google it. I completely forgot because it's been so released. We've been so separated from that point in time and that acronym that gratuitous pictures of yourself was just something I was like, oh yeah.
I did know it, but I did have to like think about it because at first I thought it was GFOTY, which is Girlfriend of the Year.
Good artist. Yeah.
Good artist.
Well, what is the modern equivalent then of GPOY?
Just send
dick pics.
Send nudes. Yeah.
No, but
send nudes.
No, but I'm saying like, wouldn't that be something you would like? I'm posting an outfit that I'm wearing on Instagram. Like, what would you tag that with now instead of GPOY?
I don't even think GPOY was that big. I feel like GPOY was just like a flash in the hashtag sphere.
It might have been a Tumblr thing only, and it probably even was a thing where when he said it on the song in 2013, I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
No, definitely. I think that I felt that way too. I was like, okay, but I think that like he's never been it's too self-serious, and I've always appreciated that, you
Right.
know? Yeah. I think I still, because like something I wrote down too was that things like that interjection about the Fisker, like there is an element of postmodernism that he just loves, and that's always been also intrinsic in hip hop because of sketches. Like so many rap records, even since the 80s, have had like their little skits and sketches tucked in to give it like a kind of personality, so you get to know who the group is. And I
Makes me
think
think of
that
that scene from Atlanta in the first episode when he's like, 28 tracks. It's a lot of skits. I'd cut them. Yeah, but mine are funny. I'd still cut them though.
yeah, yeah, and it's just so it's like yeah, like he like GPOY is so fucking random. It was random then for sure. It was
And then I mean, I would rather repeat that over and over instead of bounce like Spalding from track 3 or whatever on Stone Mountain.
Mhm.
That's an insta skip. That one. Sorry.
Ah.
Speaking of skipping songs though on this album, and I wouldn't personally, but I feel like the most skippable song on this album is Flight of the Navigator. It's such a good song. Let me just preface this by saying it's such a good song, but it's tonally so fucking different than the rest of the other stuff. And I just kept thinking like that without the knowledge of the massive art project, the multi-layered art project that this thing is, and you just listen to the record and you think that's just it. I was like, I can't imagine that many people don't skip that track because it's almost 6 minutes long and it is so slow and so stripped down
And there's no
such
rap
a
on it.
different thing. There's no hype in it. If you're on the hype vibe train, you are getting off at the stop before and walking to
Yeah.
the next stop and
Well-
then getting back on the hype train.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
Yeah,
there's so
I-
many
I
different ways
hear-
to engage with this album that like maybe if you don't care about the story and you're just trying to like you're there for the deep sub bass of it all, like sure. But
Yeah, I
don't
get what
know.
you're saying in the sense of, yeah, there are some people that play their songs on shuffle, you know, and this is not an album to listen to on shuffle, really. So it's like you really have to be committed to the arc for Flight of the Navigator to like hit like that. I think I love it because it's just like that beautiful acoustic, you know, or instrumentation, and you know, this is like closer to storytelling maybe even than the previous. I don't know if I want to say the previous few tracks, but you know, this is opening up. I'm looking at the track list, and like this opens up that side C, I think it is, like side C of the record. So if at least if you're going through it like with a literal record mindset, you've just started that. So you're committing. You're like, I'm gonna listen to this
Right.
side. Like I'm, you know, but people who have like playlists and stuff, I can definitely see how this is probably one of the least played. I use Apple Music, not to plug or anything, but I've always thought it was interesting that on Spotify, because it has the play count, you can actually tell which ones are the most skipped and
Yeah.
stuff. And it always bugged me out. I'm like, that's so scary. Like
I
if I
can
was
see
an
that.
artist, I would not want to know like, yeah, no
Yeah.
one gives a fuck about this
At
one.
least
Like,
at least That Power is the last song on the album. So if you don't care about the monologue, you're like, ah, whatever.
yeah.
Like I get that. But personally, that's just my kind of music. Like that sort of like half experimental. It's almost like a soft pop song from like the 80s in a way. Like
That Frank Ocean
But in it-
influence, maybe that Jordan
Yeah.
was mentioning, it maybe comes out a little bit in this because he's singing. Why try at all? Like,
a potato
Yeah, absolutely.
flew around my room before you can. Vine reference.
I think there's a lot of people that are aware of Donald Glover and what he does in his various art forms, and I think those are the people that are going to stick around for the whole thing. But I think that if you kind of zoom out a bit and look at the people that kind of just listen to whatever music is popular and stuff like that, they probably would have run into Childish Gambino a number of times and their quest to find music that they can bop their heads to. I think for that crowd, that's when you hit Flight of the Navigator and they're going to be like, whoa, what?
How do you think
And
that
then
crowd
there's-
reacted to Awaken My Love?
they didn't like it. I
Honestly,
remember that.
I didn't like it. I'll be honest.
I remember when it came
I
out
was
and
like,
a
where
lot
did
of
the rap
people,
go?
yeah, a lot of people jumped ship. I remember that. I
Yeah.
had a friend, well, I guess he was more of a peer. I had a classmate who I remember he like was ready to just give me his vinyl. Like I hadn't bought it yet, and he was like, "Dude, I didn't like it." He was like, "Just take it," and I was like, "All right, bro."
Do you remember that album cover being revealed for the first time in the background of an episode of Atlanta?
No, I don't
When they
remember
go to
That's
that,
cool.
like, I think it's the Juneteenth episode,
Oh, really?
where they go to that, like, rich white
Yeah.
guy's house with the black wife, and he's got, like,
Yeah.
that whole office full of, like, African artifacts and memorabilia, and then just we didn't know what that was at the time. We were just like, ooh, that's a weird looking thing.
I remember that episode. I didn't know that that's how they premiered it. I remember that.
I do remember. I still will fuck with like Me and Your Mama and the song and Redbone, of course. But like, dude, California. I'm sorry. That is the worst thing he's ever recorded. I fucking hate that song.
I love the way he uses his voice in that. It's so funny. But no, it's like
maybe it was because of in context. It was like because the internet was like such a monumental rap album, like underscore rap, that like there's zero rap on Awaken My Love, and it was just like, well, that's disappointing. Like you spent all this time refining your rap skills, and it. I understand in the context of his career why that album is the way it is. Like Sober is like there's no rap in Sober, but it was like a big single for him. Kind of a similar music video with that one to Sweatpants. It there's something with diners that like resonates a lot with him. Like I think that's even he's in a like internet cafe, like typing on his laptop in the Life the Biggest Troll like credits visualizer. So he was already getting more like his singing voice was developing like a lot. Like if you listen to like what's that song, David, that he did on Poindexter that he re-recorded for the Kauai EP? We can go to Saturn, it doesn't even matter. We can
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't remember what it's called.
But like literally even just listening to those two versions back to back, like the Poindexter version where he didn't even have the full lyrics, and then the Kauai version, you're like, wow, he's come a long way vocally. So I don't know if he took lessons or like had a teacher or if he just got his 10,000 hours in. But it definitely seemed like he relied a lot more on his singing voice as time went on. But thankfully, he was nice enough to drop what was previously known as 3/15/20 and then was renamed Ada Vista, like right as the pandemic broke out. So we were just like, we haven't heard from this guy in like 3 years, and he just put out a whole like unfinished, essentially a demo album. And that was nice because it was a return to rap, but it was also, it felt like stunted because then it was like, well, now we can't do, we're not going to get anything else from this like we did with Because the Internet, because it is the pandemic and no one can go out and do anything. So it was a little bit of a silver lining, but it was also just like a kind of what could have been. And then by the time he reissued it like a year or two ago, it was just like, oh yeah, I remember that album. It had 21 Savage on it. Anyway.
I like that project. I do like that project.
We did bring up how in like recent years he's had some like health issues. Specifically, he was on tour to promote, I think, that album, the Ada Vista re-release. And he did a show, he felt weird, and then he went and did another show, and he didn't realize that the feeling weird was he had a stroke. And it basically put a hole in his heart. But then he still went out and did a whole other show, and then he just canceled the tour. And no one really understood why he canceled the tour. But it was also kind of like to be expected because it wasn't the first time. Like around the era of that video we showed earlier, David, didn't he cancel like a year after that a tour because he broke his leg while he was performing?
Yeah, his ankle or something, yeah.
Yeah. So it didn't, we didn't really understand what, but like all this to say, you know, like I hope that he slows down and takes care of himself, which it seems like he has. Because there was this whole thing where they were working on a Lando miniseries that turned into a movie, but then like Bando Stone was also supposed to be its own thing, and I don't know, maybe it's because he's taking time off that's just like on hold, but it'll still come out someday, or I just don't want it to be, speaking of 21 Savage, like that fake trailer that they did where I was like, it's Donald Glover playing 21 Savage in a biopic. Of course I'll see this. Oh, it's not real. Fuck. So I'm hoping that Bando Stone... I mean, it seems like it is supposed to be a full movie. Like, it's not just like a Because of the Internet where you only get bits and pieces and then you fill in the gaps yourself. I mean, if that were true, we would have the Bando Stone screenplay as opposed to like, no, you'll see it eventually.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know.
So, Because of the Internet, you fellas have been listening to this album for over a decade. What is the legacy of this album? Like, do you feel like it's inspired other artists to make similar stuff? Do you think it stands on its own? Like, what's the kind of lasting effect that you get from this album?
I think that the first artist that comes to mind for me that I think definitely was inspired by not just Childish Gambino, but specifically probably Because the Internet is Kevin Abstract. Kevin Abstract had this one, and like for the listeners, that's basically lead songwriter or front boy of Brockhampton. But Kevin Abstract was putting out music on Kanye Tula even before that. And one of his solo projects was called like MTV in 1987. And the whole experience of it was like going through a Mac. So it was like the art and also its release was like structured around using a desktop and like going through different images and stuff like that. And
Sounds
Kevin
like a
Abstract.
vaporwave album.
It
Utopian
sounds like it,
virtual
but it's
right
a
there.
good pop album. It's a good hidden album for people who like Brockhampton. And like it's that same arena of pop, alt hip hop. I don't think like I mean, except for maybe the Kawaii project, that Donald was ever super interested in being kind of like a boy band pop thing. But he's always had this love, obviously, with like the Atlanta Powerline episode. We understand he loves like the effect that a black pop star or a black rock star can bring to the culture for the youth, like for the kids. And I think that Kevin Abstract also wanted to do that with his career.
Is Powerline the one where he crawls through the tunnel and the hole in the wall and like gets into that weird like wooden facade apartment and the guy's just like cooking eggs or something?
No, that's the D'Angelo episode. Rest in peace, D'Angelo.
Oh
But no,
yeah.
no, I meant Powerline. That's the Powerline is a character from a Goofy movie, and he did that
Yes.
whole episode about a
Yeah.
Goofy
That
movie,
was
and it's
great.
like I think it has had an effect on like the generation after. But I think that honestly, because the internet itself kind of remains something for the people who are like fans. Like I think that people do appreciate Childish Gambino, but just they like his singles more than anything. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if, like you said, 3005 and This Is America kind of become more his like legacy than the
Oh, I
rest
think
of
This Is
because the internet.
America immediately became that.
Yeah, yeah, and for good reason. It's an incredible track and one record of the year, even though it's a single.
But that, speaking of the separation of like audio and visual, that one is like, you're not just going to throw that on in the car. Like, you kind of need the music video for that one to work, you know?
Sure,
It's no feels like summer.
sure. But yeah, I think he has had an influence. I just don't know if because the internet itself still gets its laurels or not. I think it's such a nerdy album that maybe that's the nature of concept albums. That concept albums just are out of fashion because of playlists and everything being a little bit more streamified and not an LP. But I think it'll endure.
So it's because the internet that the album, because the internet, doesn't work so well in the modern time. Well,
Might be, yeah. The Ouroboros.
I feel like it's more of like
Cycle.
cult status at this point, where it's like
Yeah,
it's like a if you know kind of album,
yeah.
where like it has reached the point where there are people making entire video essays on YouTube about the entire project and like the hidden genius of Childish Gambino's because of the internet. And like, I don't know if we're just gonna throw the G word around like that, but I do feel like he definitely tapped into something here that even if people don't directly quote it as an inspiration, I feel like it had some sort of ripple effect on
Hmm.
sort of the combination, the mixed media part of it, going from like not super serious to a super serious like concept album just in general in anyone's career. Also just being sort of this like transitional piece from like young Gambino to like distinguished salt and pepper beard Gambino. So, you know,
Hmm.
it has its place in time for sure, but I could see like 3005 blowing up, like being a TikTok trend, you know? Maybe it even was already back when it was Musically. Who the fuck knows? But, I mean, people do, but not me because I'm elderly. So, it would be nice if this got more of a reappraisal in the mainstream, but I also think it might just be like, I don't know, not exactly lost to the sands of time, like the screenplay website itself, but like I think it was a moment, like you said, you had to sort of be there to get why it was so special and so maybe not another G word groundbreaking, but at the time it certainly felt like that. Keep in mind, I hadn't heard Good Kid, Mad City yet, so I didn't really know what the potential was for this sort of like story based album that became more of a recurring trend over time, but it's not really a thing nowadays. I feel like we had our concept album phase as a society, and now who listens to albums like in the general populace anymore? Like no one really. It's like I heard 15 seconds of this on TikTok. I'm gonna go save it on Spotify, and I'm gonna skip the Ice ad that plays in between the songs on my shuffle because I don't pay for Spotify. So it is what it is. But I will always go back to it, and I'm not like, you know, when you're a 14-year-old white boy, you try to expose yourself to as much of the hip hop as you can to be in the know. But I feel like as I grew up and obviously got into Animal Collective in a huge way, like my music, it went from like listening to rap and like 3 metalcore bands to like only like sort of the indie electronic experimental sphere, the Pitchfork sphere, even though Pitchfork now is mostly about mainstream hip hop, but whatever. It's probably his best album overall, but that's probably because it is such a big thing. It's not just one thing, it's many things, and it had so much like gravitas to it, and everything else after that just sort of feels like, I don't know at what point he decided he didn't want to be Childish Gambino anymore and was going to retire the name after like his Tarantino arbitrary number of things and then I'll stop. But I mean, are we going to get an album by Donald Glover in the next 5 years? Like, who knows?
Right.
So it would be nice to see. But again, like I said, I hope that he takes care of himself before he feels the need to feed his audience. Like, I don't know. I don't think that he's the only kind of artist like this now. Like, that's a part of the main appeal was that, like, not only was he sort of underground, but he was doing something in a new and exciting way that now just kind of feels like, yeah, the time has passed and now everyone's trying to do that in their own way, and some succeed and a lot don't. So
yeah, I don't think his like best creative days are behind him. I definitely feel very excited still whenever he mentions anything to work on. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what, because he seems so interested still in the whole like meta personality thing. We briefly, you and I in DMs talked about Swarm, which was, you know, Swarm was a TV show that was also centered on like celebrity fandom and stuff like that. So I think that like his gaze on the zeitgeist is still sharp. So I'm very curious to see
especially
what comes
the character
next.
of Paperboy very much felt like a self-insert for him, like in his rap career and like, you know, going from the place that he grew up to, you know, becoming a super huge star, touring another continent. And well, I don't want to spoil what happens to one of the characters from season 2, but there's just that's another show where you can sit there with a magnifying glass and find stuff that you never would have noticed before. So we were sort of talking about like, would this album work by itself if there wasn't all the extra stuff to it, and like you can't have the album without the screenplay. I feel like I did bring up The Wall. I feel like The Wall is a lot more of an extreme example of that. Where like if you're just listening to the 80-minute album, you might not care if it's just Roger Waters going boodaloo doodaloo doodaloo for 5 minutes. Like you're like, show me, do something. But because the internet is constantly like going through phases and like even within the same songs, like just completely new sounds and like arenas that it's exploring. But that being said, when I was preparing for this episode and I re-listened to the album multiple times, maybe it's because it is something that I listened to so much back in the day that like now when I listen to it, it just sort of like washes over me and I'm not like paying attention to it because I know what to expect. So maybe part of it has diminished, but like I said, I will always go back to it because it was just sort of like this prime example of like, it was very inspirational, at least to me as like a filmmaker, because so much of it is so cinematic that like even just like the idea of shooting a short film for this thing on film was just like crazy to me. And like, you know, I think there's a lot you can say about it, and we've said it all. And that's where we're going to end the discussion. I mean, maybe not all of it, but
beautifully capped off. Yeah,
we've gone long enough for sure, so we might as well. Like Sweatpants, when he interjects with the Fisker thing, we're just going to stop the beat right here. But David, it's great to see you, man. It's been so fucking long since I've seen you in person. I really hope
this was fun.
That I get to see you again in the future, because we go way back, obviously, and yeah, stuff like this will always keep us bonded, even if it's
Yeah, through the internet, we will keep the friendship alive, and hopefully we do get to bump into each other in our cities. Yeah.
3005, the year that we fear, only God will survive. To live alone.
From me, thanks for being on the show, David, because I think, we always like having a guest on the show. It's always kind of fun. And it's extra fun when you have somebody that seems, I'm going to go ahead and just make an assumption that you know a lot about music. And I feel like you've tapped into areas that I would have tapped into with like a deeper, mental state when it comes to music. And not everyone has that. So it's always refreshing to talk to somebody in that way.
Cool.
So,
yeah. I hope that it makes for a great edit. I can't wait to see the final product. Thank you for having me.
This might end up being 2 parts, honestly. We've talked for so long.
I mean, yeah,
there were a few digressions in there. I'm sure that there are like at least 20 minutes there of us goofing.
That's every episode.
Had nothing to
That's
do.
every episode of this show.
Every episode.
It is kind of funny though that like David I've known from meeting in person, and now we keep in touch over the internet. And Jordan I met on the internet, and I still haven't met him in person. Even though, speaking of Chicago, I went there 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago for the Pitchfork Festival to see Animal Collective play. And Jordan surprised me by doing the same thing, but I didn't know he was there until I had already left the park and went back to the hotel. Yeah. And he's like, "Hey, are you here?" And I was like,
like, "Are you here?" Yeah. And he's like, "I just left." I was like, "Fuck."
Damn. That's
and it was like a sea of people. It was already dark, and there was like 100,000 people around to see Phoebe Bridgers. So
yeah.
Well, then I think that the live episode should maybe happen the first time y'all hang out. Maybe not the first night, but like that weekend whenever you guys first
That's pretty good,
person.
actually.
Yeah, that's true.
That would be a sick way
That's
to do
a good
live.
idea.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well,
awesome.
There we go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was so good to meet you, Jordan.
Likewise.
Cool. Do
right.
I just hop off? Is that what we do?
Everyone, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks again, David.
Later.